You're fired, Charizard. What is up, everyone? Muncho here, back with another Pokemon Sword and Shield video. The games are just a little over a week away now, and I know what you're all thinking. Pretty much the entire game has leaked online already, but I haven't seen any of it yet, and so today we're going to be doing a ranking of all the Pokemon that have been officially revealed so far. Last generation with Pokemon Sun and Moon, I actually dived into all of the leaks and the spoilers, and I feel like it kind of ruined my experience with the game a little bit, seeing pretty much all of the new Pokemon before the game was out. So this time around, I've tried my very hardest to avoid all spoilers, so I haven't seen any of the Pokemon revealed yet, and I'm probably going to have to stay away from the comments just in case. We're going to be ranking the Pokemon that have been officially revealed so far based on how likely I am to actually add them onto my team. Of course, we haven't seen their evolutions yet, so it might not be as easy to judge based on their first forms for some of these Pokemon, but there's a lot of them that I haven't talked about yet on video, and with the games being so close to release now, I wanted to at least dive into some of the Gigantamax forms that I haven't talked about, and some of the Pokemon that I never got to give my opinion on back when they were first revealed. So you've probably seen other tier list slash ranking videos on YouTube, so for mine, I'm going with the traditional, I guess, American school grading system, A to F, skip over the E for some reason. I honestly think most of the Pokemon revealed for Generation 8 so far are pretty cool, so ranking them anything lower than even C might be kind of tough, but we do have an F tier, of course, which would be the Pokemon that I don't think anyone should be using on their team, so I'm sorry to any Pokemon that end up here, and of course A being the highest, so the ones that are most likely to end up on my team on the actual playthrough, which will of course be starting up on November 15th here on my channel. So let's get to it, as we've got all of the Pokemon here, and I'm going to be using the Pokemon website as well to kind of get some information on what these guys are all about. So these are all of the Pokemon revealed so far officially. One that's missing is actually Impidimp, which unfortunately never got officially revealed for some reason, so I think we should actually start with him. So as you can see, there isn't like a Sugimori artwork for him or anything, but this is a very curious little Pokemon, being fire or fairy and dark type, a type we've never seen used before, and actually really good as far as weaknesses and strengths go. It's only weak to, I believe, poison, steel, and other fairy types, which is kind of weird, it being a fairy itself and also being weird or weak to fairy. But he's got a really curious design, being this little pink imp with a blue tongue, like he's been sucking on a ring pop for too long. And when you see him from a certain angle, his nose kind of points up too in a really weird way. But just because of his typing, I think he's actually going to be really popular, especially if he does get some evolutions, which again, I haven't seen the spoiler, so I really don't know which Pokemon evolve or don't. I realize that by saying that is probably the worst thing I could have done. But Impidimp, you're going to be the first one to get ranked here, dude. So just because of that dark fairy typing, and especially if he gets some cool evolutions, I think he belongs at the solid B rank right here. He's not really my favorite out of the bunch, but I think a lot of people will end up adding him to their team. Like I said, especially if he does get some cool evolutions. So get rid of that, and Impidimp, you'll be the first one to get ranked, just because I guess you don't have an official artwork. But I guess next up we can do the starter Pokemon, just to get those out of the way real quick. Of course, you've got Grookey, Scorbunny, and Sobble. The squads are here. I guess for Grookey, it's more like Grookey Gang. The other two are squad. Though I've seen Scorbunny Syndicate too. I think Shofu might have said that at one point. I think that's a pretty cool name, but Grookey is actually low-key my favorite one out of the bunch, or I guess it's not low-key anymore, but I really liked Sobble when they were first revealed, but slowly Grookey has become my favorite just because of the little stick that it's got. It kind of drums along, and apparently it has some magical energy to it as well, and it can heal or bring back color to wilted flowers and leaves. And we saw in the trailer too, when Grookey runs along, he kind of generates grass behind him. And I'm usually not a fan of the grass type starter Pokemon in past generations, but I do really like monkeys as an animal, I guess, in real life. They're my favorite animals, so I really do like Grookey. I think he's my favorite of the bunch, so might just slot him into A tier for now. So next up, we've got Scorbunny, and I know this is going to be a fan favorite. Like, most people are probably going to pick Scorbunny, I feel like, because it is the fire starter. Usually that's the most popular one. Maybe it's the hipster in me. I feel like Scorbunny's a bit overrated. Because we haven't seen the final evolutions yet, I can only go based off the predictions that people had, like Scorbunny becoming a soccer player, Grookey a drummer, and then Sobble. We never really settled on what it was going to be, but even if we throw those out the window, I feel like Scorbunny for me lands at B because it is just as cool as Grookey, I would say, but personally, I think he's a little bit overrated, and I know a lot of people are probably going to be like, what is wrong with you, dude? But that only leaves Sobble behind, and I'm actually really surprised they never revealed the starter evolutions. At least the middle evolutions in every generation past, they have revealed, so we have only the base forms to go off of, and Sobble is last, of course. One cool thing about Sobble is that he actually goes invisible in the water, and although that doesn't really play into his ability because every starter Pokemon has the same abilities, it could actually be part of his hidden ability. We haven't seen the reveal of those yet, but I'm hoping that that somehow becomes a part of its final evolution. It already does look kind of like a chameleon with that little swirling tail right there, so it could have something to do with it going invisible, but it is also a crybaby, and because of that, I feel like Sobble is going to end up being the least favorite. But look at that expression, dude. He is so sad. Sobble just makes me sad, and it makes me want to take care of him, and so because of that, I would still put him along with Scorbunny at B tier, but like I said, Grookey just is my favorite, so it might be controversial to put Duracell Bunny here at B tier. I think it might belong in A with Grookey, but I'm gonna keep him there for now, and we're gonna move on past the starter Pokemon. I guess we should do alphabetical order from now on, so let's go with ALCREMIE next, which is, of course, a brand new fairy-type Pokemon of the Galar region, and it's literally just a cream? Yeah, it's known as the cream Pokemon, and apparently it can produce whipped cream, which becomes richer the happier ALCREMIE's feeling. Desserts made using this cream are invariably delicious, so many pastry chefs strive to have ALCREMIE as their partner. So this is an edible Pokemon. That's already bonus points. Providing food for their trainer, that's always something you want to have along on your journey. And we do have curry, of course, in these games, but you can't have the curry without a little dessert as well. So I'm sure a lot of people will like having ALCREMIE around. Because it has a Gigantamax form though, and those seem to be kind of unique, I feel like ALCREMIE isn't going to have an evolution, and because of that, I wouldn't really use it on my team personally, because I like Pokemon that evolve and get more stats, even though you can get those from the Gigantamax form. The giant cake is not really my favorite, but it does also have different forms, I believe, based on the region that you get ALCREMIE in. You can get it in different colors / flavors, so it's got that going for it, but still definitely not as cute as Slurpuff sticking its tongue out. I don't know why I have a thing for Pokemon sticking their tongue out now, like Impidimp was also kind of cool, but ALCREMIE ain't got none of that going for it, so I'm gonna put it at C tier, which may sound kind of rough, but it's basically in the middle, so it's Pokemon that I guess I'm a little bit indifferent towards. You know, I don't love it, I don't hate it, so you're going right in the middle there, just like the cream filling in between your layers. I guess if we go alphabetical, we've got the Gigantamax forms next, but I'll save those for last, so let's talk about Corviknight up next, which is, I don't know actually if it is the main early bird Pokemon for this generation. It definitely looks like it could be the evolution of the early bird, but I feel like Corviknight is going to end up being its own standalone Pokemon, being the Uber ride of Galar region, or I guess Lift makes more sense if you think about it. And being a steel and flying type, it's kind of stealing the spotlight away from Skarmory, but I do like its design a lot more than Skarmory, being this powerful, especially with its Gigantamax form, which summons little feather birds from its, well, steel feathers. And even though Gigantamax forms don't get a unique ability, I really wish they did, they do get the G-Max moves, and Corviknight's looks pretty powerful, being the G-Max Wind Rage, which will knock away the effects of moves like Reflect, Light Screen, Spikes. I feel like almost everyone will end up having at least one Gigantamax on their team, and Corviknight is definitely one that I would consider, at least for my team, because it looks really unique and menacing with those little feather birds flying at you, and the G-Max Wind Rage does seem pretty useful because a lot of other Gigantamax forms set up Stealth Rocks or like Terrain whenever they use their G-Max moves, so this one being able to basically cancel that out, along with Corviknight's special ability, actually, I guess it's not on the website, but I know on Bulbapedia I saw Mirror Armor reflects the stat lowering effects of moves and abilities back to the user, so something like Intimidate would actually end up working back against the enemy, and I think that's a really cool hidden ability that I believe it'll be very rare to find it with that ability, but if you do, that's going to be a very powerful Corviknight. And like I said, because it's also the taxi service of the Galar region, I think it's a really cool Pokemon. I don't know if it's going to end up having any evolutions or pre-evolutions, but just as it stands, I do really like Corviknight design-wise and just overall as a Pokemon, so I think I'm actually going to put him up at A tier with Grookey Gang up here. So let's move on next to Cramorant, the seagull. Cramorant's Japanese name is a palindrome. I never actually saw its Japanese name. What is that? Just you. That's very interesting. I wonder where that comes from. The sound of choking or gasping. Little morbid, but it definitely fits as Cramorant is the Gulp Pokemon, also known as the most sus Pokemon around, keeping a fish in its mouth at all times.
Do you like fish sticks? Yeah? You like putting fish sticks in your mouth? Yeah? Well, what are you, Eric? A gay fish?
Or not really at all times. It actually only summons this fish with its special ability, Gulp Missile, which when it uses Surf or Dive, it will come back with a little critter in its mouth, and if it gets hit, of course, it will launch it at its opponent to deal damage. It's a really unique ability that I don't think any other Pokemon will end up having, and that's something I loved about Pokemon Sun and Moon's new entries to the Pokedex, that a lot of Pokemon had those unique abilities, like Corrosion on Salazzle, which only that one Pokemon had, and it really only fits that Pokemon. So of course, Gulp Missile could only fit Cramorant here, but the fact that it can only use it with Surf or Dive, I feel like makes it pretty limited, and because it is also a flying and water type, not the most unique typing, and also that derpy look, I don't know, something about it definitely puts a smile on my face, but also doesn't make it my favorite. And because Wingull is also in the game, another flying and water type Pokemon, I don't know, it feels a little bit redundant to have another flying water type, which was already not my favorite typing, being super weak to electric moves, which are usually kind of common. So Cramorant, pretty cool, but not exactly my favorite as well. So because of that, I guess you're going into the C tier for now, along with ALCREMIE right in the middle, just like the fish that's in the middle of your lips. Somehow all the Pokemon in C tier are gonna have a joke about how they're in the middle for some reason, but Dreadnought is up next, which again has a typing that I'm not a huge fan of, water, rock type, but I do really like his design, and especially when I first saw it, and I just loved how it has its big jaw snapping at the opponent. I think it's based on a snapping turtle. I mean, it looks very turtle-like aside from that weird kind of jug head that it's got, but there's already a lot of existing water and rock type Pokemon, some of which I think will actually be making it into Sword and Shield as well. So again, it feels a little bit redundant to add in a new water rock type when you're already going to have other water rock in the game. And there's actually a bunch of Pokemon being cut from the game as well, so I feel like if you're going to add in a brand new water rock type, then maybe you should not have the other ones in the game. It also has a Gigantamax form, which I'm actually not a huge fan of. Like, where did its head go here? Because it has a Gigantamax, I think it's less likely that it'll have an evolution, and because of that, I think it goes a little bit lower on my tier list, because I would love to see Dreadnought here evolve into an even more menacing turtle. The same thing I feel about ALCREMIE, like it's probably not going to be the strongest unless you Gigantamax it, and there are definitely cooler Gigantamax forms in the game. So even though I loved Dreadnought when it was first revealed, now I feel like he's a little bit less likely to end up on my team, so I'm gonna put him at, feels hard to put him at D tier, because I actually really liked him at first, but now I feel like he's way less likely to end up on my team after seeing the Gigantamax form, and with that water rock typing not being, you know, the most creative, I guess. So he's gonna be our first D tier Pokemon. I'm sorry, little Dreadnought. I still like your biting animation, though. Now, this dude, on the other hand, Duraludon, is a Pokemon I haven't had a chance to talk about in a video yet, but he is a Steel and Dragon type, the first non-legendary to have that typing, and also the first Dragon Pokemon revealed for the Galar region Pokedex. And he's got a really interesting design. At least that's one word I would use for it. It kind of looks like a Bic lighter or some type of inhaler, like, you know, you put your mouth up to its tail and push the button at the top. I don't know, it's really weird looking, but it is a steel dragon. Almost looks man-made in my opinion, but it's got the light and heavy metal ability, so it either halves its weight or doubles its weight, which is really interesting because it says here it has a light but sturdy body of metal, only weighing about 88 pounds in total. Thanks to this, it can move quite quickly in spite of its appearance. So even though it is a steel type Pokemon, it might actually end up being pretty quick. And because of that, I think a lot of people will actually end up adding Duraludon to their party. Because of that, I wonder if Duraludon is going to have any evolutions, or pre-evolutions for that matter, because it's being compared to Tyranitar, which is of course a third stage Pokemon, so could Duraludon actually be a second stage or a third stage? I like seeing some form of progression in Pokemon with the ones in your party, you know, training them up and eventually them evolving. And if you catch a Duraludon very early on and start training him up, which might be pretty difficult considering it's steel and dragon type, like dragon Pokemon are not the easiest to train, and usually steel types aren't either, so thinking about training it for a very long time and it never evolving or changing at all is a little bit disappointing. I don't know. I think he still looks pretty cool though. Like, I mean, he is kind of an inhaler, like I said. It's a weird design, but unique to say the least. So I definitely like him more than ALCREMIE and Cramorant. So I think he might actually be bumped up to B tier, as he is a very unique typing, like I said, and the only dragon revealed for Galar so far. And I know people love them some dragon type Pokemon. So you're going up to B tier, Duraludon. You can be proud of yourself. Alright, next we got Gigantamax EV. We might as well talk about both of these, Gigantamax EV and Pikachu, because they are going to be, I believe, event Pokemon. If you have save data from Let's Go Pikachu or Eevee in your Switch, you can actually grab these as soon as the games come out. So obviously for Gigantamax Pikachu, they went with the design heavily inspired by the original generation Pikachu, which was a bit of a chunkier boy and definitely more huggable, but I'm not so sure about the Gigantamax version, as his tail is glowing, ready to shock you right now. Pikachu's been getting a lot of love in the last few generations, with Raichu also getting his Alolan form, and I already used that in Pokemon Sun and Moon. I thought it was awesome. Gigantamax Pikachu, I'm not as big of a fan of, I guess, because the fact that you have to keep it as a Pikachu is a little bit weird. Like, you'd have a Pikachu on your party only because you're gonna Gigantamax it, so when it's not in this form, I feel like you wouldn't really end up using it that much. And its design is amazing, don't get me wrong. I love the fact that little Pikachu could turn into this gigantic monster just crushing down cities, but its G-Max move is a Volt Crash, which will not only deal damage but also paralyze opponents, so it is pretty useful. You can see it can even paralyze ground type Pokemon apparently, as a Mudsdale is paralyzed on here. So it does seem pretty useful, and I like the design as well, so I think I'm going to put him at B tier right here for Pikachu. This is kind of hard to fit all these in. Now, Gigantamax Eevee also got a lot chunkier with some extra floof added to its hair here on its chest, but it really doesn't look that different from regular Eevee. I mean, I guess Pikachu doesn't look that different either, but it being a callback to the original Pikachu really bumps it up for me. Eevee, on the other hand, isn't quite as creative, I feel like. And you guys know I love Eevee. I Let's Play through Let's Go Eevee for a reason, and I love all the evolutions, but the fact that this one has to stay as an Eevee makes it not as likely for me to use it, I think. But it also has the G-Max move, G-Max Cuddle. Any opponent caught in this fur becomes enamored with Eevee and loses the will to fight. And its move, G-Max Cuddle, not only deals damage, but opponents of the opposite gender will become infatuated. You know, it's 2019. I feel like at this point, the move Attract should infatuate Pokemon of either gender. So because of that, Eevee, you're losing some points, buddy. You're going down into the C tier, which means I don't love it, I don't hate it. I mean, I do love Eevee, but its Gigantamax form just doesn't really impress me as much as Pikachu's does, so that's where you are for now. Next, we got a couple of grass evolutions in Gossifleur and Eldegoss. Eldegoss being the big flower child with the afro over here, and Gossifleur, well, the flower-looking thing. I'm not a huge fan of grass-type Pokemon overall, and these two feel like they're not super unique. I mean, I do like their designs, but there's nothing crazy that really makes me think like, oh, I need this Pokemon on my team, you know? They're just basic grass-type Pokemon that I feel like you'd find pretty early on in the game, and from what we've seen in the trailers, Gossifleur at least is found pretty early on, so I wonder if it will have a final evolution or if Eldegoss is as far as it goes, but for now, Gossifleur, I think will go down to D, and its evolution, Eldegoss, I think just for that afro, it goes a little bit higher up. But they are evolutions of each other, so I guess you could say that they go hand in hand, so I think they both go down to D, just because they're pure grass-type Pokemon. There's nothing really super special about them, like I said, so it does have Regenerator, actually. That's not terrible, but other than that, its Cotton Fluff is not super impressive, so y'all are both going into the D tier. We already went over these starters, so next up I guess we've got Galarian Linoon, then we'll move on to Zigzagoon and Obstagoon, its brand new evolution. So Galarian Linoon of course had that whole Pokédex description, or I guess information on the website, saying it's popular among unhappy and angry youths, which makes it the perfect Pokemon for your rebellious teenager here. It still has Pickup and Gluttony, which I think are the original abilities of Linoon, so nothing too different there. And it is a Dark and Normal type, so kind of taking away from Galarian, or actually Alolan Raticate in the previous generation. I don't know why they did it with Raticate and then they're doing it again with Linoon here, but that just makes it super weak to fighting type moves. And because of that, I feel like, I mean, fighting type moves aren't the most common in the game, I would say, but if it was a pure dark type, I think I would be more likely to use it, but it does have its tongue sticking out. Apparently that's a thing on this tier list. You get bonus points if your tongue is sticking out, so because of that, Galarian Linoon, I would put probably at C tier. It just kind of exists. But Galarian Zigzagoon, on the other hand, look at the way its tongue is sticking out, man. That is just so freaking cute. And I love its design being more like a traditional raccoon with the black and white color scheme and its little animation zigzagging on the screen. And Galarian Zigzagoon just becomes even better with that new color scheme. Apparently, it's also the freewheeling original species of Zigzagoon. There's some speculation that the zigzag movements in other regions stem from the restless nature of Galarian Zigzagoon, which is considered to be the oldest branch of the species. So this is the original Zigzagoon. Them Hoenn variants, we can forget about those. All right, this is Zigzagoon now, and I just love how it's sticking its little tongue out like an excited puppy waiting for you to give it some water or some attention. Either way, I love Galarian Zigzagoon. It's just too dang cute, so immediately getting bumped up to B. Actually, I might just put it in A because it's that cute, man. And it does evolve into Obstagoon in the end, which I really like, and we're going to talk about right now, actually, because this guy here, inspired by Kiss, I don't know if that's confirmed, but Gene Simmons apparently did approve of this Pokemon, and the fact that it looks like a member of the band Kiss with that color scheme and sticking its tongue out, of course. I really like this Pokemon, the fact that they're giving an evolution to an older Pokemon. We've been waiting like 10 years for Pokemon to finally give an older Pokemon an evolution that isn't an evolution. I know Sylveon technically counts, but now we're getting an even cooler twist on it, with it being an evolution to a regional variant, and it's one that I really like. Like, I've always liked Zigzagoon as a Pokemon. I don't mind Linoon, but I guess I just feel indifferent about it. Obstagoon, though, is really cool, so I'm gonna put both Zigzagoon and Obstagoon up there, and Linoon is gonna be down here at the C tier for now, which might seem weird, but, you know, every Pokemon has that awkward middle stage evolution, so you just gotta power through it and get to the final epic form that is Obstagoon. The only thing I don't like about it is it being dark and normal type, but it's definitely better than Alolan Raticate, and I think it'll be a lot stronger too, so because of that, I do really like Obstagoon. And Hoenn has always been my favorite region, so seeing a Hoenn Pokemon get a new evolution is just amazing to me, so you're going into A tier. Almost skipped over little Morpeko here, which has two forms. It's full and then hangry mode. The funniest name for a form ever. It's Hamtaro time. Like, it's literally just Hamtaro, and I always loved it. It's so cute. This Pokemon gets a 10 out of 10 as far as plush ability goes. Like, it is the Pikachu clone of this generation, so of course, cuteness overload. But I love the fact that it's got its hangry mode as well. Like, it goes completely opposite of what you would expect from a traditional, like, Pikachu clone Pokemon, and it goes full hangry mode. I can relate to this Pokemon because I get hangry pretty often, and the fact that that is actually part of its ability too, I think is really cool. It's got pockets too. It holds berries in its pockets, dude. Like, how cute is that? And even in its angry form, I feel like it's just so cute. Like, look at him in his little hamster wheel, dude. He's literally Hamtaro. Aura Wheel changes type depending on Morpeko's form too. Oh yeah, it's electric and dark type, so when it's in its normal form, this move is electric type, I believe, and when it's in its hangry mode, it will be a dark type move, so that's really cool. Oh, it changes each turn actually, so that might be kind of hard to master, but if you do, it can be a very versatile Pokemon too, which compared to most of the Pikachu clones in previous generations, usually they don't end up getting that much usage, but I feel like this one is going to be really popular, and I can see a lot of people adding them to their team, and because of that, I am personally going to put him at B tier because he's still not the strongest Pokemon out there, and of course it's very unlikely that it's going to evolve into anything stronger because usually the Pikachu clones don't evolve, so I'm going to put it at B tier. We've got quite a lot in B tier right now, so we got to make a little bit more space, but like I said, I like most of the designs for the Galarian Pokemon, so there might be a lot that end up in B. They're just potential Pokemon that I might use, but Morpeko is definitely up there as far as cute factor goes, and that ability being so unique. I think a lot of people will enjoy using that Pokemon on their team, so we'll come back to Gigantamax, Meowth at the ending, as well as Butterfree and Charizard, because I got a couple of things to say about those. So next up, we've got Polteageist, another brand new Pokemon here in the Galar region. The best word I can use for Polteageist is potential, because if it does have an evolution that becomes stronger, I could see this being a really popular Pokemon, but for now it's just a pure ghost type with weak armor, which is not the strongest ability. I mean, it's got weak in its name. It doesn't mean it's a weak ability, like it does raise its speed when it gets hit, but it also lowers defense, so it doesn't look like a Pokemon that can take too many hits, at least in its baby form, or at least I'm hoping that this is a pre-evolution and Polteageist actually ends up becoming something stronger, because as of now, it's literally just a little ghost T, and it's also out to kill its own trainers, which is definitely minus points from me. It is literally made from black tea, and apparently trainers that it trusts, it will allow it to sample its tea, so again, it's another edible Pokemon. I guess it gets points for that, so maybe it cancels out, but when you drink too much of it, apparently it can lead to indigestion or an upset stomach, so I feel like Polteageist is actually trying to kill its own trainer, and because of that, it gets some minus points from me. But if it does end up getting a cool evolution, I could see this Pokemon being a lot more popular, so for now, I think I'm going to put it at the C tier. It's got some really cool, unique animations to it, but as far as fighting goes, I don't think it's too strong or anything. Like, there's nothing that really screams out to me being a pure ghost-type Pokemon, so let's hope it gets some type of awesome evolution, and then I might just bump it up to B tier, but for now, it's going into C. Ah, Galarian Ponyta. I've been waiting to talk about My Little Ponyta here with its cotton candy tail and unicorn horn. It was revealed in a really creative way. Like, there was a live stream of a little forest camera set up, and I think like 30,000 people were watching at one point, literally just watching a forest and hoping that some type of new Pokemon would walk by. I can imagine that when people saw Galarian Ponyta pop up for the first time, they were losing their minds, and there was actually two of them running around, and I think the male version actually doesn't have the floofy tail, so I think that variance between genders is really cool as well. The one disappointing thing about it is that it's not a fairy type. Like, I look at this Pokemon and it screams fairy type to me, but apparently it is a psychic type instead. I guess that's a good thing because it defied our expectations. Like, I really thought this would be a fairy Pokemon, but then again, I don't know what the heck makes you a fairy in the Pokemon world. Like, they seem to just slap fairy type on stuff with a bunch of fluff on it. It's actually a psychic type variant of Ponyta with the abilities Runaway and a new ability called Pastel Veil, which prevents the Pokemon and its allies from becoming poisoned. It can even cure the poison status condition of its allies when this Pokemon enters the battlefield. I feel like that also fits a fairy type Pokemon, but it isn't. Again, it's a psychic type. Because of that, I'm just really confused by Galarian Ponyta. On top of that, it is a Pokemon Shield exclusive, and you know I'm all about the sword boys, so I'm probably not going to end up using Galarian Ponyta, but that's just personal preference. I know a lot of people have already fallen in love with this Pokemon, and it's the first unicorn Pokemon, I believe, so because of that too, I think it's going to be really popular, and I cannot wait to see Galarian Galarian Rapidash. Hopefully it becomes a Psychic and Fairy type as well. I feel like I have to put it up at A tier. I think it's going to be really popular, and I mean, I don't really have any hate for it, I guess you could say, other than the fact that it's not a fairy, but that's not really hating on it. That's just more confusion, or maybe a Psychic flying type actually, because I could see this unicorn sprouting wings in its evolution and becoming a Pegasus, and I think that would be really awesome. So there's a lot of potential for this Pokemon as well, just like Polteageist. That's the best way I can describe it, but definitely a lot more potential with Ponyta here. So it seems very appropriate to talk about SIRFETCH'D next, because it is Galarian Ponyta's counterpart over in Pokemon Sword version. And like I said, I'm all about Sword. I've always been more about offense than defense, so let's skip over Roly-Coly for now and talk about Farfetch'd's awesome new evolution here in SIRFETCH'D. And it is an evolution of Farfetch'd, as much as it looks like a regional variant. Like, when I first saw the reveal of this guy, I really thought that was Galarian Farfetch'd. It also had a really unique reveal to it. Probably my favorite reveal of a Pokemon ever. It was like 1 AM and randomly Pokemon tweeted out that there was like a glitch going on its website. We saw this pixelated image on what looked like a Pokemon bio page for a new creature that at the time we weren't sure what it was, but a lot of people were speculating it could have been a Galarian Cubone. Eventually, we all figured out that the image was sideways, and it could very well be SIRFETCH'D or Galarian Farfetch'd. And it definitely ended up being that with its huge leek sword. Like, look at this. It doesn't even fit. Its sword is so massive that I couldn't even click on it properly, but it also has a shield on it. Like, it perfectly fits the theme of the Galar region, Sword and Shield. And I just love almost everything about it, except for the fact that it doesn't have sunglasses. Why couldn't you give it sunglasses? If that was it, I would have made a whole new tier, S tier, just for SIRFETCH'D here. But because of that, I'm gonna have to put it at A. Also because it's a pure fighting type. I literally would have made an S tier just for it if it was a flying and fighting type, but because it's pure fighting type, it's gonna sit snugly up there at A. I think it's gonna be a fan favorite. It already is a fan favorite from the looks of things, and it's the White Knight that this game needed. And it's also got one of the coolest unique moves ever in Meteor Assault, the signature move of SIRFETCH'D, and it's another evolution for an older generation Pokemon, which again, we haven't seen that in so long that at this point it feels like a breath of fresh air. Like, now we've got not only SIRFETCH'D, but of course Obstagoon, and yeah, both of those are going to end up at the A tier for me. Now let's go back and talk about Roly-Coly, which is a very interesting Pokemon. I think I keep using that word, but this time I'm using it in a bit more of a negative light, because there's really not much to say about Roly-Coly other than its name reminds me of a really old Disney show I used to watch.
He's roly-poly-oly, he's small and smart and round, and in the land of curves and curls, he's the swellest kid around.
This guy here is literally the coal Pokemon, and it's found as coal lying around on the ground inside caves. Steam Engine is a new ability introduced. Pokemon with this ability will get a speed stat boost when it's hit with a fire or water type move, although I don't think Roly-Coly can really take too many hits from water type attacks, so unless it evolves into something that resists water moves, I don't know, I just don't see too many people picking this Pokemon up here. Actually, I don't know how it took me this long to notice, but it's got a little wheel at the bottom of it, and I guess that's how it moves around, because I remember seeing it in the trailer that showed Pokemon Jobs, and it was kind of rolling along the ground. I guess that's why it's called Roly-Coly, because it's literally rolling coal. Oh my gosh. Alright, I guess for that you get bonus points, Roly-Coly. I was gonna put you down at F tier, but I guess you belong in D, because it's still not really anything too unique about it. Not my favorite design either. It's a pretty basic rock type Pokemon, so we'll have to wait and see if it's got any cool evolutions. D tier for you, Mr. Roly-Coly-Oly, which means we are down to the last row of Pokemon, and we've got Galarian Weezing, aka Doug Dimmadome, up next. The very, very British version of Weezing out here. This has got to be one of my favorite Galarian form designs or regional variants ever, probably after Alolan Executor, because that thing is hilarious. But this dude has got a mustache made of poison clouds, and it's also got a giant top hat chimney where it spews out clean air. completely the opposite of regular Weezing, which is of course a poison type Pokemon. This guy is actually a poison fairy type, again making me question how the heck do you become a fairy type Pokemon? Like, what are the qualifications to be like, okay, you're a fairy now? But I do love me some Galarian Weezing. It's got Levitate, which is its usual ability, but it also gets a new one, which I believe isn't on the Pokemon site, of course, but we can see on Bulbapedia that it gets Neutralizing Gas, a unique ability to Galarian Weezing, which will suppress the effects of abilities of all Pokemon currently in battle. A lot of people have already talked about the fact that Galarian Weezing would work really well with Pokemon like Regigigas and Slacking. Even against opponents, it negates the effects of things like Levitate, so you could of course hit enemy Pokemon with Earthquake. Like, it has a lot of uses other than just boosting our slow starting Pokemon over there, but that's up to the competitive battlers to decide how they're going to use Galarian Weezing's ability effectively in double battles, because at least when it's alone, I guess it only affects the enemy Pokemon's ability. If you have Levitate on it as well, it can't even get hit by ground, so it's pretty much only weak to Steel and Psychic type attacks. Even though it doesn't look like a fairy type at all, I can kind of understand where it comes from if you read a little bit more about it. It actually consumes polluted air and poisonous gases for subsistence and removes the toxins, spewing them back out from its top hat as apparently very clean air. Something in that Weezing body has got some fairy magic that is cleaning up the air of the Galar region. Thank you, Galarian Weezing, for providing such an amazing service and filling our trainers' lungs with immobilizing clean gases. That's literally what it says. Apparently the gas that comes out of its head is so potent that even a whiff is enough to stun and immobilize an opponent. So be careful breathing that in, young trainers. Because of all that and its super goofy looking design, I think there's no other choice but A tier for Galarian Weezing. Which means we unfortunately have to cut off its very tall top hats. We're almost through them now, and next we've got two cuties, starting with Wooloo, which has maximum plush ability. Like, this is basically a pillow already. Definitely one of the cutest in the entire Galar Pokedex revealed so far. I don't know if it's the strongest Pokemon, being just a normal type, found pretty early on in the game, but I love the way that they introduce him in the trailer, rolling around. Like, it's just so incredibly fluffy and round that of course even a slight breeze pushing it around would literally make it spin out of control. But other than its cuteness, I'm not really sure how much this Pokemon has going for it, although it does have potential for some really cool evolutions, like it becoming a kind of billy goat, shedding away all that fur to become actually tougher. But as of right now, it's basically just cuteness. I want a plushie of this right now to just hug all day or all night, and I don't think I'm the only one. So just because of that, I think a lot of people are going to end up choosing Wooloo early on in their game, hoping that it has an evolution. And even if it doesn't, I think it's definitely going to be a fan favorite. I'm going to put it at B tier just because it is insanely cute and I love that about it, but I don't think it's very likely to evolve, and cuteness only gets you so far on this tier list. So Yamper, on the other hand, the electric corgi, which I believe is also found pretty early on in the game and also has its tongue sticking out, so you already know it's about to be A tier, like just based off those two facts alone. But I think it also has a lot more potential to get an evolution later on in the game, and I got to see it Gigantamax as well during the E3 demo, and that was just blowing my mind. Like a gigantic super cute corgi rushing at you. Apparently it has an organ in its body that generates electricity when it runs around, and it can't store its electricity, so it's often running around, and that's pretty much exactly how a little corgi is if you've ever seen one in real life. They're always running around excited with their tongue sticking out, and Yamper here represents that perfectly. It is literally known as the puppy Pokemon, which I think it shares that with Lillipup and maybe some other Pokemon. I feel like we've had a couple of puppy Pokemon now, but this is perhaps the cutest one yet. It's also got the Ball Fetch ability. Again, fits perfectly with the fact that it is a puppy Pokemon, but the ability also has some usefulness to it, as if you have Yamper out and you try to catch a Pokemon and you fail to catch it, Yamper will actually go and fetch that Pokeball for you. I think it'll be really useful for filling up the Pokedex, because I love using Quick Balls right on the first turn, but they don't always work out, so you basically get a free Quick Ball. Like, you get it back with Yamper, it'll just go and fetch it for you, which is perfect because it's a little puppy Pokemon playing fetch. Like, what more could you ask for? On top of the fact that it's probably gonna get a really cool evolution, I really like Yamper. I think it's super cute. Plushability is at maximum levels as well, so A tier for our favorite electric little corgi. Last but not least, we've got a couple of more puppies here in the legendary doggos of Sword and Shield, the mascot legendaries Zacian and Zamazenta. I hope I'm saying those names right. They're definitely not the easiest legendary names to pronounce out here, but we'll start off with Zacian, which I believe is the sword legendary. Competitive battling, I've always been about just being aggressive rather than stalling or defensive, so you already know I like Zacian a lot more than the shield doggo over here, but they both have really cool designs. I love their color schemes as well, but just personally, the fact that it has a sword in its mouth. I'm a huge fan of Dark Souls, if you guys didn't know, and there's a boss in those games called Sif, the Great Grey Wolf, which also has a giant sword in its mouth. Zacian definitely reminds me of that. On top of the fact that it has wings too, like, they didn't even have to put wings on it, but for some reason, it's got wings. And even though we don't know anything about these Pokemon yet, like, we don't even know their typings or their ability or how strong they're going to be, and I think both of them have really good designs, but I would say that Zacian is just slightly above for me for all the reasons I just mentioned. So I think I'm going to put him/her at A tier. And Zamazenta over here, even though it looks probably just as cool, like, it's definitely A tier as far as design goes for both of them, but because its name is harder to say and sounds like placenta, I'm gonna put it at B tier. Swords are better than shields. Everybody knows that. Well, actually, that's not true. Shields can block swords forever, whereas a sword will eventually run out. So I guess the shield is actually stronger. We're gonna have to wait and see their typings, but I guess for now, just because I like swords more than shields, I'm gonna put placenta here at B tier and Zacian up at A, but it just comes down to preference. They're basically both on par. This is my personal tier list, so that's just how I'm gonna put them for now. And yeah, I guess that's pretty much all of the Pokemon. Oh wait, Gigantamax forms. So let's start with Meowth, which is the most hilarious Gigantamax I have ever seen. Longcat is back, our favorite 2013 meme, or whenever that came out. I know it was a long ass time ago, and now we've got a long ass Meowth here. I've mentioned throughout my Sword and Shield updates that I'm not a huge fan of Gigantamax as a feature, but this Pokemon basically threw it all out the window for me because it shows the potential of these in terms of hilariousness. Like, they literally just took regular Meowth and stretched him out to the max to literally reference a meme. Like, if it's not for the meme, why else would they have made this Gigantamax form? I think it's absolutely hilarious, and I just love that he's now the tallest Pokemon ever. Let me fact check that actually, because ALCREMIE here is 98.5 feet tall in its Gigantamax, but Meowth stands at 108 feet, which is absolutely insane. And I just love its design. Look at how it has to like crouch down to even attack its opponent. Like, why did they do this? Who knows, but it is hilarious and I love it for that. It also has a unique G-Max move like all of the Gigantamax forms do, and you can actually get him as an early purchase bonus as soon as the games come out through mystery gifts. So everyone's going to be able to get this Pokemon in their games as soon as it's out, and you can bet this is going to be my first Gigantamax form. Like, there's no other ones that I want to use as much as Longcat Meowth. Just because of that, I gotta add an S tier just for Longcat Meowth. You're going to be in the corner off on your own. S tier. You know what? S plus for Gigantamax Meowth. He is just way above and beyond literally any other Pokemon and Gigantamax form on this list. So you get to stand off on your own over here. Gigantamax Meowth. I love it too much. And that leaves two more Pokemon left to review. So next up is Gigantamax Butterfree, which is definitely not one I was expecting to see. And I've noticed every single Gigantamax Pokemon has these three little clouds floating around them, but specifically on Gigantamax Butterfree, it kind of looks like a crown on it, which I think looks really cool. And overall, the fact that its wings just grow ginormous, but Butterfree almost seems to stay the same, I actually really dig that. And it also reminds me of another Dark Souls boss, the Moonlight Butterfly, which was this ridiculous, gimmicky kind of boss that I couldn't beat for the longest time because I had no idea how you're actually supposed to do it. But also reminds me of Mothra, and I guess Gigantamax Pokemon are kind of supposed to be like kaiju, you know, like Godzilla and Ghidorah. That's the one I'm thinking of. So I wonder if they'll actually have a Gigantamax Hydreigon with its 3 heads, maybe becoming like a golden dragon or something. That would definitely be a cool reference to Ghidorah. And then maybe Tyranitar too could actually be Godzilla, and then we'd have Mothra in here as well. I think it'd be really cool to see all of those, but as far as just Gigantamax Butterfree goes, I love how its wings actually glow in the game, apparently producing a blinding light, which will not only deal damage like every other G-Max moves, but it will scatter scales around the opponent that cause them to become poisoned, paralyzed, or fall asleep. So obviously Butterfree was known as one of the first Pokemon to ever have all the powder moves: Stun, Spore, Poison Powder, and Sleep Powder. So it's really cool to see its G-Max move actually reference that and be able to do one of the 3, but I think it's at random because it has that random factor in its G-Max move. I think I'm going to put it at B tier for now. B stands for Butterfree. And my camera died right as I was getting to the final Pokemon we have left to rank here, which is, of course, Gigantamax Charizard. We saved the best for last. Or did we? Because I'm actually not the biggest fan of Gigantamax Charizard, mainly because I don't think it's cooler than Mega Charizard X or Y, and its wings are made of literal fire. Like, how do you even fly with that? Like, even though it isn't the worst design, I feel like it's not as cool as either of the Mega Evolutions Charizard had. And you guys know I'm a huge fan of Charizard and the Charmander line. I mean, I got a little Charmander in my pocket right now. Call it Pocket Flame. I feel like it's just kind of unfair that they keep giving Charizard all this love and never any of the other starter Pokemon. Like, why couldn't we get Gigantamax forms for Infernape, you know? Where's his Mega Evolution even? We're never gonna get Mega Evolutions now, and Charizard not only got 1 Mega Evolution, but 2 back in Generation 6, and now we're getting a Gigantamax form for it as well. Though I guess it makes sense since Champion Leon has a Charizard. I don't know. Let's just hope that Blastoise and Venusaur get some Gigantamax forms as well, or maybe some other starter Pokemon like the actual starters from this generation. This is just not my favorite Charizard form ever made, so because of all that, it's going down as the only Pokemon on this list in the F tier. You're fired, Charizard. That's it, guys. This is my ranking for all of the Pokemon revealed so far. Let me know what you think of all these Pokemon. Which is your favorite one, and which are you looking forward to using the most in your playthrough of Sword and Shield? Stay tuned for one more update before the games come out. I'm going to do an overall kind of preview of the games, and definitely stay tuned for the playthrough, which is coming out on November 15th when the games come out. I know a lot of you have probably already seen the entire Pokédex revealed, and you already know your entire team. You've already planned it all out, but I haven't yet. I did unfortunately spoil the starter evolutions for myself, as much as I wish I didn't. It was really just a quick glimpse at some pictures of the middle evolutions, so I don't even know what types they could be or anything like that, so I'm probably going to have to avoid the comment section because I feel like some people are going to try to spoil me on all that, and maybe some other forms and stuff that might be in the game. So it's dangerous waters out there, guys. Be careful as you're browsing through the webs. I really want it to be a blind experience my first time going through the games, to recreate that feeling of like excitement and unknowingness that we had with the first Pokemon games, or the first time I ever played through a Pokemon game. And yeah, that's it for this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the Galar region.